yourselves a big hand. I think I've said everything that I want to say is already in the video. I will just reiterate that and talk to you a little more about, like Sunil said, what is the work that we actually do as Pan IIT. It is not just about the networking and all the rest of it. So just to take you through a brief history of Pan IIT, over the last 8 years, there has been a conclave every year, alternating in the US and in India. It started in 2003 in San Jose. I think Manohar Parrikar talked about him being there. And each of these conclaves are brought together thousands of people. The last one had about 5,000 people. And they come together, a lot of good things happen. The challenge is to keep the whole thing working and running in between conclaves. And that is what we really want to address in this whole in Pan IIT movement. And this, I think, is the best example that I've seen of people coming together and actually translating a lot of this into specific action, as we will see in the next session when we sign the MOUs, and then where it goes from there. And of course, a lot of work already done. So just not about networking and enhancing the brand. A lot of that has been done. I think we really, in a manner of speaking, we ourselves do not realize the power of the brand. I will tell you a very small story. I was on a flight many years ago, 2003, 2004, from New York to San Francisco, and the gentleman sitting next to me and I started to talk. And he said, we started about backgrounds and everything else, and I mentioned IIT. Oh, he said, you're from IIT? I wish I had gone to IIT. Then we talked a little more and all the rest of it, and I said, what did you do? Oh, he said, I went to MIT. And then what did you do? I went to Harvard. I said, what are you talking about? You've been to MIT and Harvard, and you say you wish you had been IIT? He said, I was in IIT, and then I been given investment banker, and during the dot-com times, we had one simple criteria for pulling up those business plans that we wanted to consider. We asked, what is the CTO? The CTO doesn't have an IIT qualification. You just push it down the pipe. You guys have established a brand that has got recognition across the United States, of course, and across the globe as leaders in certain fields. And that is something we need to take home and work with to get ourselves more engaged in what we need to do in the larger context of what we talk of in terms of nation building. So, policy advocacy and nation building are the two specific areas, two pillars that we really want to work more on. And you saw the various initiatives that have been taken. They were all in different levels of maturity, different amount of work that's been done, and it requires a lot more of people, enthusiasm, energy, and involvement to take it to the next stage. The quiz question there was, how many IITs are there at the moment? You saw the logos. There are 15 IITs today. How many of them? Nearly 8 of them have come about in the last few years. And IIT Gandhinagar, we saw the director in the previous session. And this will swell the 200,000 number that we have very significantly going forward. And you can imagine the power of this alumni, larger and more significant than for any other institution anywhere in the world. So to talk about Pan IIT Reach for India, this was essentially conceived as a nation building arm where we said we will create infrastructure across the country which can be utilized to take any project that IIT alumni come up with, which needs to be delivered across the country, particularly in the hinterlands, particularly in rural India, particularly in the semi-urban areas. So that was the idea with which we started Reach for India as a social organization or one that goes after social profit, which is return of capital. So it is not so fundamental thing in this is there a financial model? So many initiatives of Pan IIT alumni, which individuals start with their personal enthusiasm, doesn't go very far because of a lack of a financial model. There needs to be sustainability in some form of the money coming back, otherwise it doesn't go forward. There's the initial corpus that's created, it goes up to a certain point, and then the next stage becomes a question mark again in terms of funding and what will be done. So what we are saying now is, can we enable a financial model? We have a lot of experience in different pockets of the Pan IIT organization in proposing and pulling together financial models from various people's experience. So that's the first step. So, for example, the IITians for ITI, which is an initiative which kind of went dormant for a while, is again reviving right now, is at the moment working on putting a financial model. It's a bit of a challenge, but how can we put that together? And that makes sure that whatever money is put in by way of initial corpus, by way of initial grants, well-meaning alumni very often, some institutions and corporates can come back and scale the whole issue. In this country, unless you scale, and scale has a very different meaning to our country, we really need to be able to get it back and plow it back again. So the model essentially, where in what have we done here? We essentially are addressing the skills deficit. We talked about Gujarat and the kind of progress that's been made and the value addition that Sunil mentioned. How is value addition? How can we do more value addition within the system? What are the skills required for that? Employability of people who come out of whatever system they come out of. But more importantly, right at the bottom of the pyramid, how do you bring this large 600 million or whatever the number is? It goes, people talk between 400 and 600 million. These are very large numbers. How do you bring them the economy and hitch them onto this cart which is now moving at a phenomenal pace? And so to hitch them onto that cart, it's important that they learn the basic skills to transform their lives from earning an average of 2,000 rupees per month today to 6,000-7,000 rupees after going through a 4 to 6 weeks training program that just costs 1 month wage of that person, so that the money can be recovered from him over a 6 to 7 month period through wage reductions. So these are the various skills where we first find a customer who gives us guaranteed employment to everybody who comes into the training center, and that person, that organization gets involved in the selection process. These people are selected from below the poverty line areas across the country. They are brought to the training school. It's a Gurukul system where they live and work right there. There is a principal and trainers who live there as well. There are systems in place, there is monitoring, there is cost control, all of that is put in place. And this has got the support of NABARD some time back, where they came and said, if you can go ahead and scale this, they would give us the initial corpus so that, and let me just go back to the issue we faced before we went there. The issue we faced was, while somebody gets trained in welding or construction skills and joins the company where we give him a job, how does he stick there? There are many issues in the employment conditions of such people in these companies. So how does he really continue to work there? And if he goes away, if he quits after 2-3 months, what is the recourse we have to getting the money back? So we involved the MFI in between. But the cost of funding for MFI is very high, and therefore the cost of funding from the MFI is very, very high. So we found a source in NABARD to provide funding to the MFI at a very low cost of money, 0.5%. So that the microfinance institution can still lend at about 8 to 8.5% and still make some money out of it for themselves, at the same time make the whole thing sustainable. So funding is provided from the NABARD source as refinance funding into the MFI network. The MFI finances the check in our name, in the name of Pan IIT Reach for India, which comes to the Gurukul to pay for the training. So that is paid up front. And once the person gets a job at the end of the 4 to 6 week period, a State Bank of India card that has been specifically created for this, no frills account, which includes standing instruction to repay the money to the MFI and also pay 200 rupees back every month to his mother, who's part of a joint liability group. So that's the way the whole loop has been closed. So closing this loop is now we are seeing the result over the last 6-7 months since this has gone back. We are seeing 85 to 90% of the money coming back in that time. There are still few issues that need to be plugged, early days. And so this model today has a funding base of about 5 crores, which can sustain training of to 8,000 students. And partnerships to set up 30 Gurukuls, out of which 10-12 are signed up and done right now. And CII, we have signed up to use their network to go to their member base to really identify companies who want these skills, who will be the employers of the people we train. And the no-frills account with standing instruction, the card was released in the 2010 Conclave in Delhi. So that's the skill card that was released. The second initiative I want to talk about is the IUCE. You heard about that in the video. Now, Professor Mistry talked about education being the base. We all agree. Now, Rafiq was talking about the gap, the quality gap in the entire process. Now, this attempts to address the quality gap in terms of particularly focused on engineering education. So what has happened in this situation? About 150 engineering education institutions and businesses are collaborating in this whole thing. And the next slide. Faculty experts come and do 1-week workshops, and they train Indian faculty trainers to be trainers and go ahead and train across multiple regional centers. And this process is being set up to go up to impacting 8,000 faculty members in India. And as of last year, you can go to the next slide. There are 28 faculty US experts have come down, done about 38 workshops here. 1,100 Indian faculty have been trained. In 50 regional workshops have been held, and 2,000 faculty members have been in India have been further trained by those trained by the US faculty experts. That's the train the trainer method, and that impacts an end. It is expected next year to impact up to 200,000 students whose quality of education is expected to be impacted based on a pedagogy change, based on methodology that's employed, based on how the content is delivered. Rafiq talked about that. I call him Rafiq because he was 1 year senior to me in IIM, so we go back a long way. I don't see him here. He talked about the difference in the pedagogy between the US and India. The more emphasis on practical experience and group projects rather than lectures. So those are the changes that are being brought about in the IUCE. There are the other initiative which we talked about, IITians for ITI, is something again that is one that is designed, that needs to be designed to scale. There was initial some work done a few years ago. Last 1.5 years, it suffered for lack of leadership. It's got Pradeep Kapse, who just retired from his job as CEO of iShare, has now taken the initiative, and we are putting together a model where we can get back on the ground and start models again. I think there is interest from Gujarat on this, and in this, when we initially looked at what's happening here, the maximum amount of initiative and work on the ground has happened right here in Gujarat. The kind of work that you and your team have done to engage with the ITIs here, we would like to really take a lesson from that to use that as a model for taking it to other states. So they've looked at it, they say, hey, this place does not need an intervention because it's high on the maturity cycle, tremendous amount of good work has been done, how can you learn from it? The Blue Book, I'll just go back to that print. The Blue Book was published a year and a half ago in conjunction with CII. About 2,000 skills have been catalogued, and it gives you a step-by-step process to take an IDI, assess the current situation, what are the current quality levels, what are the steps to be taken to take it to the next level, and put a step-by-step process in place to get it to the next level of quality training in the IDIs. This is available as a basis for you to go and engage. So any of you interested in taking this up, there is a methodology available, there are ITIs who want to do it, there are also organizations who are willing to sponsor and become a partner in this process to put funding in. It is the tying up of all this, and an individual who lives and works very close to where the IDI is physically, that is required to really make it up and make the close the loop and take it to the next level.